The hard part with life is you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Saying yes too fast, like you said, within hours or days, can kind of come with those risks that can kind of unravel some of the years of hard work you've poured into your business.
And so sometimes it's not about money. Sometimes it's just about what's the environment of how you want to end and what does that look like? And is it on your terms?
Welcome to the Total Succession Show. I'm your host, Tyson Ray, joined by Kim Cochenour. We're glad you're here. Subscribe at totalsuccession.com/podcast and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. Today's conversation just might be the nudge you need to start preparing for what's next.
Today, we're talking about something that's happening more and more: an unexpected email, a call from one of those big firms, and a conversation that might just happen at a conference. And suddenly someone actually wants to buy your practice, buy your life's work. Maybe they're even offering you more money than you expected, or you can envision some freedom from some things you don't like to do anymore. And maybe you actually feel a little panicked because you're not even sure what to do next. This episode is for you and in that moment. So, Tyson, you've worked with advisors, a lot of them who've gotten that call, and you have actually been approached yourself to sell the business. What is that moment like?
Well, it's kind of, if you went back to like dating and someone's trying to pick you up, right? They're flirting with you, right? You feel wanted. Like it's kind of, it feeds on some of our humanness
Hmm.
that can be good and bad.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, somebody wants to buy my firm and buy my life's work. And
Hmm.
part of the reason that Total Succession exists is we want to be preparing you for a world where that keeps happening.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So then you can choose the response that takes you down the path you want to be on.
Yeah. Yeah. And something to consider in all of this is that offer is not actually the plan. So, what most advisors aren't realizing that the deal makers are actually kind of banking on that you don't understand fully that the offer is not the plan. So, they're hoping you're not prepared, not in a vindictive way, but it's business, right? They need to be able to make money in this transaction, and they're hoping that your reactive commitment or the yes for something that you are going to do, you haven't even really thought through yet. So let's kind of get into it. Like before you say yes or no or maybe, you need to ask some questions, not to the purchaser, not the buyer, but to yourself. So Tyson, put yourself in the shoes. Like, what should you listening? What should they be asking themselves before they respond?
Yeah. So I just finished the certification as a certified exit planning advisor, if I got that right, SEPA.
SEPA.
I had the other one for, I don't know, 5 or 7 years, 7 years.
Mhm.
And one of the thought processes that they take you through or they encourage you to help others in business exiting. And it threw me for a loop and I had a hard time with it for a while. And it actually totally lines up with traction in EOS, which
Mm.
is it's to ask yourself the question every 90 days. Before you do business planning, quarterly planning, anything, the first question you ask yourself is, in the next 90 days, am I going to grow or am I going to sell?
Hmm.
And I kind of thought about that for a while because for me, it's just like, our plan is not to do anything for, I don't know, a decade. We may never sell. And yet the science behind the technology of that question, which is very good for me as an entrepreneur who's all over the place in my head, thinking out in the future, is no, you made the decision. And so for 90 days, put that thought out of your head. And that can help frame the reference that if you get this unsolicited request and your answer for the 90 days is you're not going to sell, you can either one, push that off until you change your mind, or you can make it an action item for the next 90 days. But the first part of it is take control of what you already committed to yourself before you add the distraction of, because it is a distraction. I allowed myself to be distracted for the better part of 6 months in 2024 because I made the mistake of responding to an offer to buy a practice. And then I pursued a different one just to counter it. And in the end, had I asked myself if I had told myself in January of 2024, I'm not going to decide to sell this thing for the next 90 days. So therefore, I'm going to focus on the business and the urgent and important things that need my attention and take up my time and energy. I would have been much better off had I taken that offer and said, I'll reach back out to you in March or April 1st, really, when you decide again, are you going to sell or are you going to grow or continue doing what you do? It is set up to take you through a process. It's a sale, right? It is a solicitation. They are reaching out. It's like an advertisement to get you to do something you normally wouldn't have done on your own. That's what advertising is. And it starts with, an NDA. So now it's private. And then it starts with, give us your information on your practice. And then very quickly, I mean, within days, hours in some cases, you get back an offer letter or a letter of intent. And it's a really big number on the first page, and then 5 or 6, 7 pages, 10 pages to explain what that really meant, if you even got that far. But it anchors your mind with millions and millions of dollars, in some cases more than you ever thought. And then that becomes its own enticing thing to pursue.
Yeah. Well, and it's the concept of you even realizing like, okay, why is that so appealing? And something for you to even consider in that moment when you're being asked that or you're being offered that is if you're in that 90-day window and you are going to entertain that, like what is making this sound like an appealing option for you? So
It's the parachute. It's like, I'm
mm,
stressed out. I'm frustrated. I got things I can't control. I'm running a
mhm,
business. I'm grown in complexity. I don't know what my end game really looks like because I haven't gone through the space mindset to kind of figure that out for myself. And so all of a sudden it's just like, I could be done.
mhm,
And the mistake is that you think that, and the offer gives you the impression of that, but these offers come with different terms, often with some type of earnout to help you earn that money you got or they want to give you. And you're really not done. You may work in an entirely different capacity if you get on the other side of this. And it may be a capacity you didn't really want to find yourself in when you really jumped on I can be done. I can get rid of all these headaches.
mhm.
And it's really just a different set of headaches for a while.
Yeah. So you kind of bled into this, and so I'm gonna kind of capstone it a little bit. Is there's some things you need to consider from the buy, like some questions to ask the buyer, and you said in the 10 pages of the documents, what portion of those millions of dollars are you getting up front or as an earnout later? What is my new role going to be, and how long am I going to need to be in that role? And for you listening, most of you have a team. So what's going to happen to those people on your team? So Tyson, you alluded the numbers really aren't the only thing that's going to matter in selling your life's work. It's good to kind of know, and it's a good question to ask. But it isn't the only thing that you need to kind of be thinking through. So I think it's helpful, Tyson, we kind of move into kind of a little bit more of some pitfalls and red flags that you've kind of seen through your own experience and other advisors. So let's dig in a little bit because saying yes too fast, like you said, within hours or days can kind of come with those risks that can kind of unravel some of the years of hard work you've poured into your business. So let's kind of talk through some of the red flags you've seen. What are kind of some of those common traps that you've seen advisors fall into when they rush to accept that offer?
Yeah, I think it was said to us on a different podcast that, you tell me the number, I'll tell you the terms.
Ah, very true.
And so they're starting with numbers that just kind of like, I remember when the numbers we got in 2024 were like twice as much of what I thought the company was worth.
Mhm,
And the reality is when you dug into these offers, and then if you wanted even more, it's like, okay, you have these other more aggressive terms in these deals that, in some cases, it was having to grow the business at 10 or more percent a year for every year for 5 years to get these earnouts.
yeah.
And the individuals that I've talked with that got on the other side of these transactions all of a sudden have this stress that they haven't had for decades of their established career to have to, or feel like they have to, in order
Mhm,
to earn this more money, grow and possibly create a conflict of interest with what their clients are, or how they take on clients, who they take on as a client to
mm,
try and meet
mhm.
these earnouts or bogeys.
Quotas. Yep.
I met another gentleman who was just kind of perplexed by the fact that, for almost 30 years of growing his RA and running his business and having his firm to it wasn't the money that was bothering him. It was his words to me were, I have a boss now.
Yep, back to being the employee.
Yeah, he's a nice guy and he's wanting me to help encourage me and get these earnouts and because it helps the acquiring firm to meet all those to have that growth.
Oh, for sure.
But it was just a depressing he was depressed, I think, or just disappointed in the thought of I'm ending my career having to report to somebody.
Uh-huh.
And so sometimes it's not about money. Sometimes it's just about what's the environment of how you want to end. And what does that look like? And is it on your terms or is it on terms that you agreed to that another firm dictated for you to get more money that you may not even need? It's a balancing act. And it's the purpose of, again, doing total succession is just trying to create awareness around what people are finding themselves, what you're getting yourself into when
Mhm.
you explore different ways of exiting your practice.
Yep. Yeah.
You said it earlier, so I'll touch on that. What happens to your team?
Mm.
We are having the opportunity, or we're exploring the opportunity currently of acquiring one or two wonderful employees because another colleague is looking at selling his practice. And in the process of selling his practice, the acquirer doesn't need him nor wants him to have some ops positions, some marketing positions. A lot of portfolio management positions go away because these are all the efficiencies that get absorbed into these other conglomerates. And so are you ready to say goodbye to people that helped you get here? And how does that affect them? And then how does that affect the culture in the firm when those desks are empty? This was supposed to be this great thing, but not everybody necessarily gets to come along for the ride.
Mhm.
Or you have to look at retooling your team to find homes for those people. So there's an aspect that get clarity around what does that really look like? Because you may be surprised on the other end if you didn't ask some of those questions that those answers are going to be dictated to you, and now you can't do anything about it because you sold the company.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that if you're going to exit your company, however you choose to do that, either at death, you're going to stay here forever, internally or externally, that are you going to be able to say you left your clients better off?
Mm.
Because I feel like that's the expectation the clients have. That I feel is the way you can exit the practice and not regret it. Because in the end, if you exit the practice and the only one that was better off was you with more money, you won't know how that really feels until you get on the other side of it. And then you run into these people that are like family. They've entrusted you with their entire life savings, with generations of their family in a lot of cases. And they're going to tell you whether or not this was a successful transition, a successful exit are they better off? Or are they now just a number and they're just one of many clients that are reporting to a team of advisors? They don't have that one-on-one relationship. They've lost the person that understood the story of the wealth of how they accumulated what they have, how they got it, what it means to them. And so these are all pros and cons and pitfalls, red flags, risks that go into what do you want?
Mhm.
And can you define that to then find the right fit and the right solution
Mhm.
before being tempted into something else?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot to consider when it comes to the sacrifice of the number. You said it at the beginning, you tell me what you want to make, and then I'll give you the terms. And so, as an advisor, you have seen many of your clients, and you have to teach them how to find contentment with what they have and not go for the higher number or not spend some of the money because it's just sitting there and they're fixated on a number. It's kind of putting the shoe on the other foot for the advisor to start walking through that scenario and being like, okay, what are the unintended consequences of getting the biggest multiple? Figure out what is it do you that you need to make. And we had a great episode that actually was talking about if you put in so much money into the practice that you have to monetize so much of it to get it out of there, that's something for you to consider. So we'll link that in the show notes to kind of dig into that if you're feeling like that's there for you and you're kind of that's resonating with you.
Or you may need to stop living a lifestyle that you're spending everything that you're making, so then you have to sell the business to have resources to then retire.
Mhm.
I feel so empowered by the thought process of, if I can live my lifestyle like I was an employee that requires me to save and steward for later, it makes the amount I need to sell my business for a lot less stressful, significant. I'm not saying don't get value for what you built,
Mhm.
but I am saying there's an entirely different mindset of advisors that I have met with that enjoyed life, bought the bigger houses, swapped out cars, boats, planes, second home, toys, giving to the kids, all the things that, the fruits of the practice that they spent, but they really didn't invest a whole lot. They really didn't set a whole lot aside. And now they have to get so much money out of this practice. And that again can create a pitfall of either retiring on terms you didn't want or not leaving your clients better off. And I feel like I if you're listening to this and you have some time, steward well the resources, take money out of the business and reinvest that to build assets such that the have to get so much is lessened because you stewarded well what you had.
Yeah. That's really helpful to kind of shift your mindset around what you need to do when considering any of these offers. So, at the heart of what we talk about here is keeping relationships front and center, and taking care of the clients and putting their best interests at heart. And so, one thing I think would be kind of helpful, Tyson, to dig into is how can you, listening, evaluate whether the buyer will really take care of your team and your clients and not just tell you what you want to hear? What are some things that we could be asking, or different ways we could approach that question without being so overt as being like, are you going to screw my team over as soon as I'm out of the picture?
Yeah, because advisors are lost in the transaction to think about, and then because of the earnouts, they're sticking around.
Hmm.
But when you're finally done, the earnout's finally done, you're now retiring at whatever age or term that you had. Then what? And I feel it isn't so much asking the acquirer how that's going to work, though you should. Much more if the acquirer's the right fit and are open and honest, they will give you access to other advisors that are either in their earnouts and how does that feel,
Mm.
and be able to talk to, and I did, some of the advisors of the companies that we were looking at and got a clear picture of some that were in their earnout phase, some that were had the whole earnout and were still continuing to work, and ideally trying to find some that actually had now fully retired, and what happened to the clients. And because that's where the companies really make their money, is when you, the owner, are paid out and now no longer on the payroll, that
Hmm.
they can create all kinds of efficiencies. But that's done often by having a one advisor to many clients, which lessens that client relationship, which can affect your team, which can affect just what those clients experience and affect how you feel in the end, how your legacy is being lived out now that you're looking at it from the outside.
Mm.
Your business and your life's work is worthy of seeking the resources from those that are actually now experiencing what it was to be acquired at said company,
Hmm.
if you're looking at these external offers.
Yep. Yeah. So, one last question I think would be good to hit on before we move on is I know you have walked alongside several advisors whose deal looked really good on paper, but it ended up costing them more than the deal was worth. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the hard part with life is you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so you can do all the due diligence and you can talk to all these people and you can make the best educated decision, and many have. And yet I've talked to a few that when they finally got on the other side and they actually got to feel the culture, who's their boss, quote unquote, or who do they report to, or who are they responsible to, um, didn't wasn't satisfying. It wasn't worth the money they got. And I've had some folks that walked away from their earnouts because the culture was so bad
Hmm.
that they effectively had to pause their career, wait for their non-competes to play itself out, and then try and figure out how do they pick their life back up to go do what they want or feel called to do for a couple more years, because they weren't looking to just outright retire. And these are the trade-offs. And so it's just knowing that you're really ready to be done, and in some regards, because you're definitely going to be done owning it if you sell
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to make us take a little pause so we can kind of think through this a little bit. We've asked some hard questions. We've talked through some of the red flags, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to walk away from the question. You don't need to walk away from the offer, but it does mean you need to plan so that you can respond well and thoughtfully. And so we're going to dig into that a little bit to help you think that through. So a thoughtful response, a thoughtful next step. So, Tyson, what does it look like to navigate that next step? Walk us through um, taking that phone call, but not being hook, line, and sinker, ready to sign on the dotted line right away.
Yeah, um, I would treat it as an opportunity worth exploring and get really focused on the data and the questions and the answers, and not on some destination of some paycheck deposit in your account. I think it is, I think it's very important to bring other advocates in to help you see your blind spots.
Mm,
And so it's not necessarily the consultant that's consulting with the deal. It's not necessarily the people you're interacting with that are giving you the offers. It's not even if you're doing it internally with your team. It's bringing in a colleague, another advisor from another firm. It's definitely bringing in those that you love and they love you and have been along and made the sacrifice for this career to see and talk through what are their questions. What they will help point out your blind spots. They will help make sure that you heard and have the answers, not the perception of them. I think it is going back to the space framework that we talked about in Total Succession of, again, what do you see yourself doing when you're no longer a financial advisor? What do you see your team doing? What do you see how the clients are being treated? What are you doing with your time and your gifts and your talents that now need to be allocated to something else?
hmm
What 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 preparation have you had or need to have to basically get through this decision? And maybe it's a decision to pause. What do you need to act on within the practice to set that sale up or improve your position to be acquired or internally transition into the future? What do you need to commit to let go? Just the whole space framework to then exit based on what you saw, because without creating the space in your brain, the space in your schedule, the space from clients, the space from running a firm, and letting yourself think and live in the space of the question of, what do I really want? Because you may not want to sell it no matter what it's worth, or you may want to. Uh, but it's much better if you can frame those answers before you get those offers.
hmm Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you for kind of going through that. It's good to have some tangibles so you're not feeling overwhelmed by the decision. So, it's understandable if you are not ready yet because it's not something, unless you dedicate the time to deal with, you're not going to be ready for. So use this as a launching pad to help you get prepared and to help you get started. So even if this deal isn't the right one, the moment is kind of a triggering point for you so you can be prepared, so that you can use that for the future. So kind of trying to wrap us up. If you're sitting there and you're kind of in that uncertainty space, wondering if you're ready, if you'd be ready if you had that email, that call, you ran into that person at the conference, kind of want to give you something tangible to do and work on this week. Take 10 minutes and write down your non negotiables. The things that are going to matter to you more than the money that can be distracting on the first page of that offer. To you, it might be keeping your team. It might maintain your flexibility and your autonomy in your role. It might be the legacy impact of your firm. You have to have some of those things that really know what your non negotiables are before you start looking at numbers. So make sure you're figuring those out now instead of being under pressure later to decide. Tyson, what do you think? What are your final thoughts for our listeners on that?
Yeah, I have two things to add. One is talk to your team, talk to your key employees. Don't wait until you have an offer. It's even better to talk to them before you have any offers, but just kind of what your thoughts are to find out what their buy-in is. Because I feel the next decade of the industry is going to be a lot of G2s not happy with the founder's decision and then leaving the company and creating conflicts where they may be taking clients or feeling they need to go somewhere else because they didn't get any say before it happened. And so as you see what what space looks like for you, what your exit's going to look like for you, what you want, talking to the 2, 3, it might only be one key member of the team that's vital to make this happen, that they're bought in and they are thrilled to help you as they had been to now exit on the terms that you want. Because if you blindside them or you don't bring them in before these offers happening, you're now selling it to them and it may not be what they want. And
Yeah.
the second thing I want to tell you is, and this is duh, but you need to hear it. There is no perfect. There is no perfect exit. There's an exit. It's not perfect. There are pros and cons. There's trade-offs. And it's just balancing those and having other people help you balance those to find what is the best solution for you on your terms with what you want with your life's work.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Tyson. It's always a good reminder to know that nothing's going to be perfect. It's hard to detach your
Yeah,
emotions from
you
that.
might want to record that and play
Yeah,
that back to me, right? Like
I
that may
will.
be like a reoccurring thing I need to hear every morning.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard because you've attached so much of your time, energy, effort, blood, sweat, tears, and some of you've given up a marriage or a big relationship to your business. And so you've put a lot of anchors into the exit of this that until you kind of identify what some of those are and realize it's not going to be perfect, you are going to be very dissatisfied with whatever your exit's going to be. So identifying what you need instead of landing on what is only perfect or only acceptable, you will probably have a more successful exit and give you a little bit more satisfaction in that transition instead of a lot of regret. Thanks, everyone, and we'll be back soon with more conversations like this.
These conversations are designed to support your next move, however close or far it may be. Tap subscribe and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. I've wrestled with these things myself, and that's exactly why I created something to help you do it with less stress and more direction. My book, Total Succession, is now available on Amazon. Inside, I break the process down into 5 clear steps to help you exit on your terms with confidence, full compensation, and your client's best interests at heart. You can also visit totalsuccession.com/podcast to download a free starter guide that walks you through my SPACE framework: see, prepare, act, commit, exit. Remember, you only exit your business once. Create the space to do it well. Thanks for listening. Until next time.